It was a time before smartphones, selfies, or Instagram influencers. In the quiet village of Mehal Kalan in Punjab, nestled between Barnala and Ludhiana, life moved slowly, untouched by modern chaos. On July 29, 1997, a 17-year-old girl named Kiranjeet Kaur stepped out for school like any other day. She wore a clean salwar suit, her head respectfully covered with a dupatta, riding her bicycle with innocence and purpose. She never returned home. Kiranjeet's sudden disappearance sent a chilling silence across her village. She wasn't the kind of girl to run away. No lovers, no rebellion, no warning signs. Her family, especially her physically disabled father, Master Darshan Singh, a respected school teacher, refused to believe she left willingly. They searched everywhere, but no trace of Kiranjeet was found. The police shockingly dismissed her case, suggesting she may have eloped. No report was filed. No urgency was shown. The family's desperation turned into frustration. They knocked on every door, begged every local, but no one had seen her after school. When they insisted the police take action instead of helping, the officers began targeting innocent boys from the village, beating and arresting them without reason, likely under the influence of politically connected families. It was as if someone wanted to silence the search altogether. That's when hope came from an unlikely source. A grassroots union of farmers, laborers, and teachers rose in rebellion. Leading them was Manjeet Singh Tanner, a fiery activist known for standing up to corruption. Alongside Narayan Dutt, a labor union leader, and Master Prem Kumar, a respected teacher, they formed an action committee. Their mission to uncover the truth about Kiranjeet Kaur and get her family justice. With Manjeet at the helm, protests erupted across neighboring villages. Thousands gathered, pressuring local authorities, and finally a formal investigation was forced into action. Kiranjeet's missing report was officially registered. And soon, clues began to surface. In the fields belonging to the influential Chima family, suspected by Kiranjeet's own parents, her school bag, books, and bicycle were found, dumped like garbage. This discovery should have ignited a firestorm, but the police moved sluggishly, dragging their feet as another painful week passed. The villagers feared the worst. Their fears were confirmed when 13 days after her disappearance, Kiranjeet's naked body was found buried deep in a pit on the same Chima family's farmland. Her last moments brutally evident, raped, beaten, strangled. The entire region erupted in fury. Thousands assembled as her body was pulled from the earth, demanding answers. Her post-mortem confirmed sexual assault and severe physical torture. Police found crucial forensic evidence under her fingernails, hair samples suggesting she had fought till her final breath. But justice still felt distant. Despite overwhelming evidence, the police hesitated to act decisively. Days passed, then weeks. Pressure from the movement built again. The action committee amplified their demands, and finally, arrests were made. Among those detained were Gurpreet Singh Chima and his brother Jagraj, boys from the very family Kiranjeet's parents had suspected from day one. They weren't just village bullies. They were politically protected. The motive behind the crime was disturbingly petty. Days before her murder, Gurpreet and Jagraj had teased Kiranjeet on her way to school. When she responded boldly, shaming them publicly, their fragile egos couldn't bear it. They planned revenge, not just to humiliate her, but to destroy her. What followed was a coordinated assault that ended with a life stolen and a village shattered. But even as arrests were made, questions began to emerge. Why did the police delay action? Why were innocent boys beaten while real suspects walked free for days? And how deep did the Chima family's connections really run? These questions weren't just about Kiranjeet. They were about a broken system. As Kiranjeet's body was laid to rest on August 12, 1997, thousands mourned her. Her funeral wasn't just a farewell, it was a rallying cry. In that moment, Kiranjeet became more than a victim. She became a symbol of resistance. But her case had only just begun. The legal battle would stretch over years, exposing far more than just a crime. It would reveal how justice in India can be twisted by power and silenced by fear. What happens when those who demand justice become the next targets? And in a country with countless Kiranjeets, how many stories remain buried in silence? The fight for Kiranjeet Kaur didn't end with the recovery of her body. It had just begun. Her death ignited a fire in Punjab's villages, lighting the path for a movement that refused to be silenced. The Action Committee, led by Manjeet Singh Tanner, was no longer just seeking punishment for her murderers. They were challenging a system that protected predators with political links and silenced the voices of the powerless. But justice, as they would soon learn, is a double-edged sword. The arrests of Gurpreet Singh Chima and Jagraj Singh Chima were seen as a small victory. But the deeper truth was unsettling. These boys belonged to a family that wielded influence like a weapon. With deep connections to both politics and police, the Chima family had gotten away with many things before. But this time the public was watching. The protests were loud. The leaders were determined. Still, justice came at a price. As the case moved to court, new threats began to surface, not just to the victim's family, but to those who had dared to lead the protests. Manjeet Singh Tanner, Narayan Dutt, and Prem Kumar had become symbols of resistance. But that made them dangerous in the eyes of those in power. Slowly, whispers of retaliation began. Fake cases were filed against them. Harassment escalated. It became clear someone wanted to break the backbone of this movement. Meanwhile, in court, the evidence against the accused was strong. Forensic results confirmed the hair samples found in Kiranjeet's hands matched the Chima brothers. Witness statements supported the timeline. The public sentiment was overwhelming, but when the prosecution finally presented its case in 2001, 4 years after the crime, they asked only for life imprisonment. Not the death penalty, not a rarest of the rare judgment, just life. That decision shocked everyone. How could such a brutal case where a young girl was raped, beaten, and murdered be treated as anything less than the most heinous of crimes? The law allows for capital punishment in rarest of rare cases. Kiranjeet's family and even ordinary citizens believed this was such a case. But somewhere, somehow, the legal fight had already been weakened. Eventually, 4 men, Gurpreet, Jagraj, and their 2 accomplices, were sentenced to life imprisonment. 3 others were acquitted. No death penalty, no exemplary punishment, just time. And even that wouldn't last long. In 2010, just 13 years after the murder, all 4 convicted men were quietly released from jail. No media coverage, no public announcement. They returned to their lives. Gurpreet and Jagraj settled back in the village, keeping low profiles. Their crimes had faded from memory for everyone except those who carried the weight of Kiranjeet's name. But the story didn't end there. During the court trials, the Chima family continued their campaign of fear. They targeted the very people who had stood with Kiranjeet's family. They weaponized their influence. In 2001, two senior Chima family members, Bayant Singh and Dalip Singh, got into a heated confrontation with members of a rival family at the courthouse. After their court hearing, as they stepped outside, a violent clash broke out. Dalip Singh was fatally struck and died in the hospital 10 days later. Immediately, the Chimas filed a case. Among those named were not only the men involved in the actual fight, but also Manjit Singh Tanner, Narayan Dutt, and Prem Kumar, the leaders of the action committee. The three men had only been present at the courthouse for unrelated cases. They had nothing to do with the fight, but they were the loudest voices for justice, and that made them dangerous in the eyes of powerful enemies. In 2005, the court delivered its second shocking verdict. All 6 accused were sentenced to life imprisonment, including the 3 innocent activists. Public outrage returned, but this time it was harder. People were tired. Years had passed. Manjit, once a hero, was now a convict. But the movement didn't die. Farmers' unions, student groups, and human rights activists across Punjab rallied once more. They organized protests demanding justice not only for Kiranjeet but now for those punished for seeking it. Manjit Singh Tanner's journey became symbolic of something bigger. His life, his work, and now his imprisonment told a story about how dangerous it can be to stand up against power. In 2007, when Prakash Singh Badal returned as chief minister, pressure mounted. The state government offered remission, a reduction of the sentence for Manjit and the 2 others. But it wasn't so simple. At the same time, an appeal was pending in the Punjab and Haryana High Court. According to law, a sentence under appeal cannot be revoked by the government. When the case reached the High Court, only Manjit's sentence was upheld. The other 2 men were acquitted. Once again, the system offered a compromise. Partial justice. Manjit, now older and physically tired, appealed again. This time, to the Supreme Court. The appeal dragged on for a decade. During this time, Manjit's reputation only grew. He was appointed vice president of the Bharatiya Kisan Union in 2014, becoming a national voice for justice and farmers' rights. His story inspired others, but his own battle was not over. In 2019, the Supreme Court upheld the High Court's decision. His sentence would stand. At 62 years old, the man who had fought for Kiranjeet was now ordered to surrender and serve time in prison. What does it say about a society where a man can be jailed for demanding justice, while murderers walk free in less than 13 years? As protests reignited across Punjab and unions and students once again raised their voices for Manjit Singh Tanner, the people wondered, was this truly justice? Or had the system simply shifted its target from the perpetrators to the protesters? And now, a chilling question hangs in the air. If fighting for justice can turn you into a criminal, who will dare to fight next? The story of Kiranjeet Kaur began with a tragedy, but what followed in its name became a long, bitter war of justice, where truth was silenced, heroes were punished, and the system protected those it should have condemned. More than 2 decades later, Kiranjeet's case remains a mirror to society, a reflection of how easily the powerful rewrite the ending. After the 2019 Supreme Court verdict, Manjeet Singh Tanner, the man who had ignited a revolution for Kiranjet's justice, stood broken but undefeated. Ordered to surrender within a month, the 62-year-old activist faced prison not for a crime he committed, but for being present at the wrong place at the wrong time. His supporters rallied once again, but this time something felt different. The energy was there. The slogans echoed through the streets. Yet hope seemed to flicker. Manjeet's journey had turned from resistance to sacrifice. From 1997 to 2019, he had become the face of grassroots justice. He led protests not just for Kiranjet, but for dozens of others wronged by the system. Farmers, students, even women's rights groups had followed him. He was respected, even loved. But in the eyes of the law, he was just another convict. In November 2019, after tremendous pressure from protesting unions, the Chief Minister of Punjab wrote to the governor, requesting that Manjeet's sentence be officially remitted. And the governor agreed. Manjeet Singh Tanner's sentence was finally pardoned. He wouldn't have to serve time. His decades-long fight was over, or was it? Because while Manjeet walked free, Kiranjet remained a ghost in her own story. No roads bear her name, no chapters in textbooks tell of her courage, no laws were amended because of what she endured. The girl who died because she refused to stay silent, who dared to stand up to harassment, was slowly erased from the collective memory. In a society obsessed with outcomes, the victim is often the first to be forgotten. What about the men who killed her? Gurpreet Singh Cheema and his brother Jagraj, convicted murderers, served barely 13 years for one of Punjab's most horrifying crimes. After their release in 2010, they returned quietly to the same village where Kiranjet once lived. They resumed life under the shadow of silence, protected by privilege. The world moved on. But for Kiranjet's family, the pain never did. Master Darshan Singh, her father, once a proud school teacher, became a living shell. Left physically disabled, emotionally shattered, and socially isolated, he watched as the men who destroyed his daughter's life walked free while those who stood by him were punished. His voice faded with time, like so many others who trusted the system and were betrayed. But here's what hurts most. Kiranjet's case had all the signs of a rarest of the rare crime: rape, torture, murder, and concealment of evidence. By legal standards, it was more than enough to seek the death penalty. But the prosecution never pressed hard enough. Perhaps they feared political blowback. Perhaps they knew the Cheema family's influence reached farther than they could fight. Whatever the reason, justice was diluted, served in fragments, and delivered too late. And what of society? Today, people talk of social media corrupting minds, of girls showing off or crossing lines. But Kiranjet was none of those things. She was a simple girl from a small village wearing modest clothes, heading to school. She didn't post videos, didn't rebel. Yet her silence, her modesty, her goodness, none of it saved her. She was punished simply for saying no, for standing up against boys who teased her, for daring to speak back. That alone was enough to end her life, and that in many ways is the real horror of this story. Because Kiranjet's story is not rare. It is buried in police records, locked in courtroom files, and whispered in the corners of thousands of villages across India. If she were alive today, would her story be different? Would a smartphone have helped her call for help? Would viral hashtags have forced faster justice? Or would she have been trolled, blamed, and mocked online like so many others? We like to think time has changed things, but has it really? The Chima brothers are free. Manjeet Singh Tanner is out. The courts have closed the